Well, Obamacare's popularity hitting a new all-time low with Americans as problems with its website forcing a key sign-up deadline forced to be pushed back. A new poll finding just 35% of the public supporting the health care law. Jonathan Coligio, a Republican strategist and the director of communications for American Crossroads, and David Mercer, a Democratic strategist and the former deputy national finance director for the DNC, are joining us. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to see you today. Before I begin, though, I want to throw up a poll that Fox News conducted just recently. If we could see that in terms about the law being repealed, take a look at this. Right now, compared to July, you see that a majority of people still maintain that the law should be repealed, 53%, keeping the law in place, 41%. So you see there's a lot of folks out there quite upset with the way things are being handled with the website, along with the long-term impact of what this law could mean for many Americans. Jonathan, what's your reaction to all this, and where do you see it going?
Well, I mean, Nancy Pelosi famously said that they needed to pass the law in order to find what was in it. And now that people know what's in the law and they're actually being impacted by it, it's more unpopular than ever. Also in that poll, 62% of people say that they just oppose the law outright. And what the poll didn't get into was this separate question of, do you support dismantling the worst pieces, the worst parts of this legislation piece by piece? And separate polls have shown those numbers way up in the 60s. 65% coalition of Republicans, independents, and Democrats support a piece-by-piece dismantling of this law. I just don't know how long the Democrats can stand opposed to what this vast majority of Americans want, especially leading up into an election cycle like this.
Well, David, we are hearing that more and more people are actually signing up and enrolling for health care coverage via the website. But even if those numbers continue to get better, what does it say in terms of perception? Because doesn't perception often trump the reality, particularly at a time when so many news reports are coming out about so many problems with the overall impact of Obamacare?
I think that's the hope of Republicans, that the perception turns into reality. But we've seen in the last two elections, be it 2010 and 2012, that the GOP's efforts to take over the majority of the Senate based on Obamacare did not work, and it's not going to work for the third time in a row going into 2014. And I think, as you had mentioned, Uma, that with millions more having access to health care and experiencing the benefits that John and others fail or will not acknowledge are recognizing, whether it be those young adults that would not have health care that can now get it on their parents' health care insurance, or those with pre-existing conditions that otherwise were being turned away from insurance now get it. Those people also are voters. They're going to the polls in November of next year, and you will see the success of Obamacare as well as Democrats.
But let me jump in here for just a moment, because
majority.
The program really does depend on the young and the healthy signing up in big numbers to make this work effectively for the entire country. Jonathan, if we don't see those numbers improving, what's the impact there?
Well, here's the thing. They need the young people to go into the program basically to subsidize all of the new coverage that people will supposedly be getting. But I think that a lot of the benefits that David is talking about are actually overblown. I mean, in Kentucky, for example, you had all the people trumpeting how well this website worked. Well, it turns out that 75% of the people who had signed up for Obamacare actually are not in Obamacare. They're in the state's Medicaid program, which isn't Obamacare at all. And it's not something that your average voter in the middle really cares about. The other thing here is that Harry Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate, is really playing a very unkind game with his colleagues, because he has said that he will not allow any bill to be even debated on the floor of the Senate that allows any kind of dismantling effort. Now, if you're a Democrat representing one of those red states and you're up for re-election, this means that there's not even anything that you can point to your constituents to say, hey, I tried to scale this thing back a little bit. Harry Reid is keeping them even from debating this thing on the Senate floor.
I've just got a few seconds left, but David, let me ask you this. The fact is, if we don't see more improvements in the near future, we are hearing more reports of Democrats defecting from the president and saying they really don't want to have anything to do with Obamacare going forward. Are you concerned about defections as the 2014 elections come closer?
I am not concerned personally, and I don't think Democrats are. I think Democrats are united in making Obamacare work, addressing any fixes that need to be instituted to see it through to final implementation. And with regard to John saying that we've overblown the benefits, that's maybe John's perception of it, but there are a lot of people who are getting the access to affordable care who otherwise wouldn't have it, and that's not an overblown statement, and that's something that totally is an alternative to what the Republicans have to
spend
offer.
$2 trillion on the law. I hope
We're
that at least
out
a
of
few
time.
people can benefit.
This is a debate, obviously, we're going to be watching for some time and keep close tabs on how this all plays out. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Emma.
Pleasure.
Colorado's marijuana industry